Today I'm going to talk to you about another reason why you should get a second citizenship. And here's the interesting thing. A long time ago, I used to kind of categorize people into different categories based on their current citizenship, right? It was essentially if you had a great citizenship, then probably no need to consider a secondary one. If you have a bad citizenship, you probably want one to have more world access. If you have a US citizenship, you may want one so you can renounce. That was kind of the loose baskets. Then things started to change, and I started to say, well, actually, if you have a good citizenship, you probably still want to back up. And one of the reasons was what we saw during COVID, right? People just couldn't move. That was a bit of an issue. And you started to see some crazy things that governments were doing. And you're like, well, that's a bit of an issue. A client of mine referred to, the place that you have a citizenship as your owner. How are your owners behaving? And that's not a great situation. Well, there's a new reason that was quite interesting recently. And this pertains to Canadians, but I think it could just as equally, over time, pertain to a bunch of people. And actually, there's two scenarios where this showed up for Canadians. One was that Canadians couldn't get visas to go to India because, the Canadian Prime Minister decided to virtue signal, and India didn't really like it. And Canada discovered that espousing certain sets of values is a function of power, and if you don't have power, you don't get to do that. And he unfortunately doesn't understand that aspect of how the world works. But the more interesting one is buying property in some place like Italy. And you might think, okay, foreigners are allowed to buy in Italy. I want to buy in Italy. Wonderful. Well, guess what? Canadians can't buy in Italy. Why not? Because Canada has a ban on foreigners buying in Italy, and so on foreigners buying in Canada. And so Italy says, okay, well, we're going to apply reciprocal rules for Canadians in Italy. Now, there's some ways around this and things that you can do, etc. But you know what the other really easy way is around it? Just have another passport. You have another passport, you say, hey, listen, I'm from here, no big deal, off we go. And so I think increasingly, as the world becomes more and more complex, as there are more and more challenges that we are facing, you see lots of fluid relationships that didn't used to be fluid, things that you thought you could rely on before you cannot rely on. And it just becomes a much bigger reason to get a second citizenship today. Now, there's different ways you can do that. The easiest, or the best, if you can qualify, is citizenship by descent. If you can get it, absolutely get it. Do not question, just go and get it. It's an incredibly good investment to do that. If you don't do that, you basically have sort of 2/3 kind of ways that you can go there. The one is you can go and live in another country and work towards citizenship. And what I would say about this is, of course, it's a big deal to choose where you're going to go, and you don't want to just choose where you're going to go based purely on where you can get another citizenship. So, you have to be a bit cautious there. However, if it's going to make a big enough difference for you in your life goals and the lives of your family, etc., might be worth kind of tilting where you want to go to one place that you can get citizenship versus one that you cannot. I talk to people quite a bit about this. If you look at some place like, for example, you could go and live in Malta, or you could go and live in Portugal. If you live in Malta, you're not going to get citizenship very likely by naturalization. If you go and live in Portugal, it's a pretty straightforward path to citizenship. If you're somebody who wants to get it quickly, the fastest places typically are Dominican Republic, Argentina, and Peru. And then you kind of have some cascading ones out from there. But there's something good about being able to get a second citizenship through naturalization. However, you have to see whether you're actually willing to go and spend the time. Usually it's going, in most cases, vast majority of cases, this is going to require numerous years living on the ground, might require learning a language, etc. And that can be a wonderful experience. I remember talking to a friend years ago he was Ukrainian and had gotten citizenship in Czech Republic. Somebody was like, how long do you have to spend there? It's like, 10 years. I was like, yeah, but I loved Prague. I love being there. So it's not a sacrifice. It's a good thing. So just thinking in terms of diversifying your life, moving to some other country, being able to work towards a citizenship, awesome. The kind of quasi way that I'll go in before we get into the last one, which is most applicable to everybody, is, of course, you can do this through marriage. Now, the number of places that grant citizenship through marriage without actually living there is pretty low, but there are a few, notably Italy, Poland. The easiest one is Cape Verde. It's like instant citizenship. So if you happen to be dating, my grandfather used to tell my father, he said, you can love a rich one as well as you can love a poor one. And I think similarly, if you're going to go and date, you can fall in love with somebody as easily from Poland as you can from some other country. And hey, there's a benefit there. So you may want to choose to tailor your dating around it. I would never say, hey, marry on the basis of that. Obviously, love matters and relationship matters and all that other kind of stuff. But this is one path to look at. The last one, of course, that is accessible for basically everyone is citizenship by investment, which really is citizenship by donation in the vast majority of cases, let's be clear. So this is something that you should probably be looking at fairly quickly because prices are going up and programs seem to be going away. So the best of these that is commonly available is Malta. Now, there's a lot of restrictions on certain ones, so they aren't available to everybody, but Malta is more or less the best citizenship you can get through a donation. Hungary has some unofficial stuff that can be done. It is comparable to Malta, restricted for certain nationalities, etc., but also an option much easier to get in terms of speed than Malta if you're somebody who qualifies. Then you have some other countries like Austria where, okay, if you invest a large amount of money in the country and things like this, you can do it. So there are some options there, but it's less straightforward. Then we have the Caribbean countries. So there are 5 Caribbean countries: Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Kitts, and Antigua, where you can basically buy citizenship. So we often help people with those, with Malta, with Hungary, etc. So that would be an option. Then we have Turkey, Egypt. Egypt, I would say, is not so talked about these days because it was traditionally a pretty bad program, but certainly is actually improving relative to Turkey. So that's something to be considering. And Vanuatu, which is its own kettle of fish. It used to be kind of competitive with the Caribbean ones. Now it's kind of dropped down, but at least you can get it quite quickly. So yeah, these are some of the really easily accessible citizenship by investment programs. If you're interested in any of those or help relocating abroad, figuring out what the best solution is for you, please reach out to us. We help with all these programs, help people get them all the time. And so you can send a message through offshorecitizen.net, or if you want to talk directly to me, you can book a call, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below. And I will see you guys all in the next video.